Shannon Hughes.
And I'm Rachel Tilley, and we're here to serve as the voice of women's surfing.
This episode, we catch up on all sorts of exciting news in women's surfing, from new films and edits to even more tour changes from the WSL, as well as Stab High Japan, Challenger Series kickoff, and the fast-moving championship tour happenings.
Well, hello, Shannon Hughes.
Hi, Rachel Tilley.
It's nice to be back on here with you. Obviously, every time we record, you are every so few weeks more pregnant. Yes. And we are having this conversation again. You are almost full term, which is so exciting.
It's so wild. We could kind of have the baby anytime, but like 4 weeks from the due date. So hopefully we last all 4 weeks. Don't go too far over. Don't come too early before that. Any of those things.
Like Goldilocks. Like,
yes.
What's the bear that, I think it's Mama Bear that's like, you know, like not too hot, not too cold.
Oh, yeah.
You just want porridge just right. Same as your baby.
Totally. We just want this baby to be just right. She's getting nice and chubby. We've been able to see in the last ultrasound we had this week, which was very cute and kind of weird looking because, you know, ultrasounds are strange. But
yes.
Yeah, other than that,
the new like 3D ultrasounds are really strange.
Yeah, totally. Otherwise, I'm just huffing and puffing up and down the street everywhere I walk and everywhere I go, and I waddle, and sometimes
You're
I feel
definitely
good
not
enough.
In the water anymore.
I haven't surfed in. I was trying to think about this morning. It's probably been like maybe a month. Maybe I'd have to check with Erin or even look because we've got a video maybe from the last time that I surfed.
Okay.
Maybe I was around like 32 weeks. And then we had the tricky thing here in Australia is that it's winter now. So it's freezing cold.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Like the air temperature is actually really cold every day. Water is not crazy, but it's like very cold if you're going to actually be out there. So I've got to have a wetsuit. And we've just been getting like smashed with heavy winds, big surf, you know, nothing that's like nice and pleasant looking at all the pregnant Hawaiian girls like paddling out in like a 2-foot day. That's really warm and they're like surfing in a bikini. It's like, that's not happening in Sydney at all at this time of the year. So the surf today is like as perfect as it could be for me to like try and surf again. And I'm fairly tempted except for the wetsuit issue, which I actually put my wetsuit on yesterday and put fins on and went for a swim.
Oh, okay. So
which was really nice. Squeeze. So I'm still getting in the water, but breathing's already so hard because like my baby's so big and my lung capacity is now so small that the whole time I was out there, I felt a little bit like I was suffocating. And I think it's because the wetsuit fits, but it's like tight enough to just feel like I'm wearing like a compression suit. And so there's just a few things where I was like, it's not worth. Also, I'm like so much heavier right now. I don't know how much I weigh, but I'm so much heavier than I was pre this baby being this big.
Yeah.
And so I'm like sinking my longboard, like my biggest board that we have is like not quite, I can't knee paddle it. So I have to be on my stomach because it just fully like tips over knee paddling now.
Yeah.
And then wetsuit wise, like there was just no point because of the time of year and the type of swell we have here and all that stuff to be like, I'm going to try and find myself a better, bigger board and a wetsuit and all the things. I feel like if we were living somewhere else with like friends of mine in J-Bay, that my friend Mariska, she just had a baby girl, like maybe a month ago.
Oh, yay.
And she surfed until like the week before she gave birth or the week of giving birth or something at Point, which is such a good longboarding wave. And like if we were still there, it would just be like, if you get a small fun day, it's just so easy to surf, you know?
Yeah.
We just don't have waves like that where we live. It's like lots of beach breaks and dumpy reef breaks and stuff. So anyways, that's my spiel. I'm still doing Pilates a lot. Climbed up Wadi Wadi the other day. Told Erin we have to try and do it again this week sometime because that's also like really good like leg strength building.
Yep.
And I don't know. We'll see how we go. This baby could come before the next time we record. So we might have to find you someone to record with. And we'll just do like a pop in with her. Like,
well, maybe me and Erin could
Lion
record.
King
Maybe we could get Erin to. Yeah.
I love that idea. You and Erin should absolutely record together.
I think that's a great idea.
And I'll produce from behind the scenes and just be like, I haven't paid attention to anything.
You and the baby.
I haven't slept in a month, but here we are. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm at home. Basically, I've been on the road nonstop. And I think I already kind of like talked about this the last time we recorded, but since February, or like since I was with you, I have had no more than like 10 days at home straight. So it has been a lot of time on the road. And now I do actually have like 1 month at home. So that is, I'm like really reveling in that. I've been home for almost a week now. So that's been great.
3 more weeks to enjoy.
I know. And it was straight into having lowers. Obviously the CT take place here in San Clemente. And I always love it when the CT comes to town because it's an opportunity. Like San Clemente actually is such a small town. So you end up like seeing people, you know, you just like run into people, and there's like a fun little buzz in the town of excitement. So that was fun having everyone here. And I went only down to the contest one day. I went on finals day because I got an opportunity to jump in the booth for a heat, which was awesome. But it's been a full house because my boyfriend Jake was working water safety for the event. So he was staying up here in San Clemente. And then my friend Jamie Lee from Australia also just showed up, and she's staying with me. Nice. And last week we were dog sitting my parents' dog. So it was a really, really, and she's a puppy. So she just has so much energy, and she's a tiny little pipsqueak, which she's so cute. But it has been a very like full house of activity and nonstop and people, which I love. It has been great, but has been a lot going on.
So even though you're not on the road has like come to you.
Exactly. Literally exactly. So, yeah, that's my little update of everything going on. Oh, I want to give a shout out though to my new friend Keely that I met at there was a party at Stance after the event finished, and Jake and I stopped by for like 20 minutes, and this girl Keely, who I just met, came up and said that she loves listening to the podcast and that she listens to it while she works, and told us to keep recording. And I was like, okay, so well, I think we're recording this weekend. So that's the little push that we needed. So hopefully Keely listens to this. Shout out to you. Thanks for coming and saying hi. And
that's so nice.
Yeah, I know. It's always, that's so, so nice when we've talked about this before, but I forget people actually listen, you know, like when we're talking us two. And so it always like reminds me, and I'm like, oh wow, things that we are just like putting out there are getting like consumed by people. It's not just like our little conversation.
Yeah, it's the sweetest thing when someone like comes up in the wild and they're like, it's not, you know, it's in the wild. Basically in the wild for us is always still like, it's somehow we're like in a surf context. It's not like I'm just walking through the grocery store ever. But like, when someone comes up at the beach or like at a comp or whatever it is to like talk to us about it, it's just the greatest, sweetest thing.
Yeah, so cool.
Thanks to everyone out there that listens, whether we have met you yet or not. Hopefully we do one day.
Yes, thank you. Well, Shannon, should we dive into this episode?
Let's do it. Well, Rach, to kick off our monthly roundup, we've got quite a few things to catch up on because it's been a little while since we recorded a news episode like this. Of course, we had our great interview with Kate and B, the photographers, as our latest episode. But for this month's monthly roundup, I just wanted to kick off straight away with talking about Seize the Day, which is an event, a women's surf festival that we talk about every year now on the podcast. It's coming up this weekend. If you are a listener and you live in Northern New South Wales or on the Gold Coast, or you're just somewhere in Australia, but you have some extra time this weekend, a little cash in the bank to hop on a flight maybe, then definitely head to Kingscliff, where the festival will be taking place Saturday and Sunday, 21st and 22nd of June. And I just thought, I got this email today from Seize the Day, and they've just got so many free things. Like the whole vibe of the festival is free stuff that gets women and girls engaged in surfing. Whether it's physically in the water, they're offering free surf lessons. They've even opened up like more lessons because the spots have been filling up so quickly that they wanted more girls and more women to be able to have the opportunity to get in the water. There will be a, contest element, like straight contest. There's tag team elements. I know girls from our board riders are going up this weekend for it. And then they've also got heaps of cool activations zones. There's a mental well-being, breathwork, yoga, a few other things, as well as like some according to this, 30 different workshops. So they are just
Holy
blowing up and
smokes.
expanding. Every year it just gets so much bigger, which is really awesome. And there's some huge names that are speaking as far as Surfing Australia women are concerned. Lane Beachley, Pauline Menzer, Wendy Botha, Chelsea Hedges, Pam Burridge, India Robinson, and more like that. So if you're in the area, definitely something to check out.
Yeah, that's so awesome. Shannon, both you and I have had our years where we've been involved over the past few years respectively, and it is always just such a fun event. So if you have the time and opportunity to make your way over to Kingscliff this weekend, highly recommend, both from our experiences. It is so awesome, and similar to the theme that we talked with Kate and B on so many aspects of the surf industry. Like, I know Kate has been someone who's spoken at Seize the Day before as well.
I think
she
B might be a speaker
year.
this week as well.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, like there's just so many different angles.
Yeah.
In whatever you're interested in, whether it is surfing in of itself, being a trainer, a personal trainer for athletes, or a photographer. There's so many things to listen to that are so interesting. So definitely check it out.
In other news, there's a few surf films and edits that we wanted to mention in this week's episode. First and foremost being a full feature film called Maya and the Wave, which is about Maya Gabeira, who's a Brazilian big wave surfer who takes on Nazaré. Her story is pretty unbelievable when it comes to just her journey as a surfer, her journey up against the men within the industry, and specifically in that big wave community. And she ends up walking away with the world record for the biggest tow wave ever surfed. It's a really cool wave. A really cool film. Rach, I don't know that you've had the opportunity to check it out yet. I know it's just started having some California premieres. I was able to see it here in Australia a couple of weeks ago and was just blown away by the amount of time that Stephanie Jones, the director, put into just pulling all of this stuff from Maya's background. And it really does a good job of kind of showing her whole story through her journey towards the end of reaching her goal, as well as a lot of the ups and downs, like the high points for her, as well as kind of even in reaching the highest point within her career of getting a world record, of getting that wave, what the come down was after that, and kind of questioning some of her process within, was it worth it? Is this something from the physical and the mental challenges that come out of being an extreme athlete like that? So yeah, it was a really interesting film to watch.
Yeah, I also just am always in such awe when there are documentaries that are following like the journey of someone going after a goal. I always think in that when you're starting this documentary, you don't know if you're going to fulfill the goal or not.
Yeah, true.
And just like how stressful that is over, some of these in general documentaries that are like multiple years long or whatever, and following this journey. It's like, well, hopefully she gets it, but she's obviously putting everything she can into it, but having like the added pressure of someone like cameras following you and stuff, like I'm just imagining that from her perspective, like if that's added pressure or not. And I'm always just like so thankful and in awe when athletes do choose to like bring like people like that into the inner circle of that journey, because getting to see someone achieve something like that and so huge like that is just such an awesome thing to follow along.
It's so true. And even thinking through like being that honest and open early in the filming of a documentary like that, of like, this is the goal that I'm going after, however long it takes to get there. Like, this is what my sights are set on, and letting people in on that, rather than sometimes having that. I think we've talked about it too in your world title journeys, like over the different decades that you kind of chase those, of like, do you kind of keep it more insular? Like, is it a personal thing where maybe your close friends and family know, but you're not like in every post-heat interview, like, I'm going to be the world champion this year,
Yeah.
That kind of idea of like really letting it out into the open. And I feel like in a space like this with a goal as big as like Maya, when she was pretty young, set this goal of riding the biggest wave ever. Like that was just got into her head as a younger, woman. And she decided to go after that. And yeah, the story that unfolded from it was pretty wild. There is a lot of footage in it that's quite hectic from some like basically a drowning episode that she had where she got to the beach and they didn't know if she was going to survive. So I would say from dramatic perspective and kind of some really real raw footage that they included in it, which I appreciated the fact that was in there. I wouldn't recommend it for anyone with like really young kids to bring young kids to. But outside of that kind of, especially in that space of like maybe not wanting to instill fear in kids learning how to surf or just getting into that journey and everything. But from like a teenage perspective onward, I think it's a film that kind of gives a lot of perspective to a lot of different things going on behind the scenes.
Another edit, Shan, we wanted to talk about was Wilson's Home, featuring both Willow Hardy and Ellie Harrison. It is basically Willow taking Ellie all around Margaret River region and them getting super barreled. It is a fun watch. It's only about 4 minutes, but I just really enjoyed this edit.
Yeah, it was a really sweet one. Like you said, like quick and easy to watch, just full of music, no like dialogue or anything to it, but fully the girls just getting absolutely shacked, like barrel after barrel, taking off on waves that looked like they were all smiles and fun. And I was thinking there's a couple that when we were watching it of being like, I just don't want to surf waves like that. That just doesn't, even though it wasn't like massive or like crazy big or anything like that. Just that like quick, steep, hollow takeoff, knowing that there's probably like, it's Western Australia. There's a lot of reef, a lot of rocks underneath. It was really sweet to see the two of them. And it's funny because they actually look quite similar. Like I know Willow and Eddie.
They look like sisters.
Yeah, they look like sisters. So it's easy for me to pick out kind of who was who. But at the end of the film, Erin and I were watching and he was like, it's a good thing that one's a regular and one's a goofy foot. Otherwise, like it'd be so hard to tell them apart in so many of these waves. And I just think it's such a sweet little edit that those two are two of the really kind of standout surfers in the up and coming generation of female surfers within Australia. And seeing those dynamics of friendship, especially like across the whole country, like one from East Coast, one from West Coast. There's so many friendships like that, you know, develop through surfing easily, even across countries. But yeah, I thought that was really sweet. One thing that we did want to mention within this is you may or may not be aware if you follow Willow Hardy's journey at all. She's surfing on the Challenger Series this year. She, after getting knocked out in her first Challenger Series event at Newcastle, which was just like last week, she went down the beach and was chasing some heavy barrels, as we've just seen her do in this little edit. And unfortunately, she snapped 3 ligaments and detached another one from her bone. Had to be like rushed into emergency surgery, like all sorts of hectic stuff. Had to do it through the private healthcare system so it could be done really quickly instead of waiting for the public side of things, for the sake of her being able to have the surgery, heal in time, to potentially come back with her goal for surfing at the US Open in Huntington and keeping herself in the running on the Challenger Series this year. So, like, such a bummer. We're so sorry, Willow, that was the outcome, especially after, like, you know, a heat loss. But there is a raffle that's going around. You can follow Willow Hardy on Instagram and find all the information on that. We'll include it also in our show notes. But a raffle that's got heaps of surf apparel and lots of cool little things to help cover those surgery costs, because she's not only got to cover that, she's also got a big year on the Challenger Series with some huge funds coming. Yeah,
she had said on her post that I read, it was like, my sponsors have helped me set up this raffle thing if you want to like purchase tickets and stuff. And when I was reading it, I was hoping, I thought she was saying like, fortunately, my sponsors have stepped up and they're like helping me cover all the costs, because I know of another surfer who snapped his or injured himself somehow, and Red Bull covered all of his surgery costs, which was just like a huge blessing for them. But I was like, wow, I love like hearing stories like that of like them stepping up. So if any of the sponsors of Willow are listening, please just cover her surgery costs.
Give her a lot of cash. That's what she needs.
She needs her surgery costs.
No more
covered.
tail pads and wetsuits.
Yeah. But I mean, turning it back to the more serious note, that is crazy. And of course, that to happen right at the kickoff of the Challenger Series is such a shame. So we are hoping Willow has a really quick recovery, and I hope everyone can enjoy watching this edit of them take place, obviously, as she is recovering. Hopefully she can just revel in the success of Wilson's Home just gaining traction and everyone seeing her and Ellie absolutely rip it up over in the Margaret River region.
Totally. And even just thinking through like her start to the Challenger Series, just before that, she was a wild card for the Margaret River Pro, which we'll get to at the end of the episode when we get to that. But like the footage of her charging on the really huge day for Margaret River is like phenomenal. It's like full big wave surfing and she's just out there. It's home for her. Like she makes it look pretty simple and easy, but there's a couple photos that are like the biggest waves taken off on that day were Willow as the wild card. So she's obviously like a surfer that's coming into form as well at this stage of her career. And we hope all the best, quick healing, straight back out there for the US Open, surf some nice, small, soft waves in Huntington Beach and get yourself back into the running.
Exactly. Well, Shan, the last edit we wanted to talk about, or more so, I feel like this is a film because it was 30 minutes long, Milk and Honey, featuring Katie Simmers, Stephanie Gilmore, Coco Ho, and Frankie Harrar. Just absolutely an awesome film. I think it actually might be my new favorite film that I have seen.
Yeah, it was so good. Rachel said you got so inspired you went out on a shortboard today.
Yeah, I watched it earlier today and it inspired me to go. I went and surfed my twin pin after Coco, who obviously is my favorite, was talking just
your
about
favorite of all time.
Yeah. And well, it's, you know what, I was thinking about this because I was explaining to Jake, like we watched together and he was like, so what'd you think? And I was just processing how much I enjoyed it because I did really enjoy it. And obviously one of the things, it's no surprise to any of the listeners, like we talk about this all the time, but like 3 of my absolute favorite surfers were all together in one film.
Yeah.
Like Steph, Katie, and Coco were all together. And then of course, Frankie was a really great addition to be able to watch too. I see bits and pieces of her. I grew up competing against her when she goes on to talk about all those like the 40 NSSA wins. A lot of those were against me when I was on a shortboard.
Nice.
She was beating me. And so that was awesome to just be able to see. But yeah, the surfing was really inspiring. I loved the conversations we just got to hear them have too, and what we got to hear them talk about and all the different places that they're all at within their career. I think they brought together like 4 really interesting dynamic group, you know? I mean, yes. Frankie is a mom now of 2, Steph being the GOAT, Katie, the reigning world champion, and Coco now just kind of having been on the tour, but now, as she talked about in the film, going down this more entrepreneurial side, has left the competition more in the past and just launched her own board line and all these other ventures she's been exploring through her career. And I really loved hearing all of those different aspects of where they're all at and being able to come together and push each other. And I just thought like the quality of the surfing and the film too, like on the other side, the editing, the angles, all of that was just phenomenal.
Yeah, I loved it as well. It was a really good, like fun and happy film with great surfing involved in it. And then like, those storylines for each of them, it was really interesting. And getting to hear the girls talk about each other as well and kind of reference like when they first came up against them or like what their impression is of that person or how like for Katie, you know, she'd had Steph and Coco as her favorite surfers for forever. But in the last year, Frankie's kind of come really into her radar as someone that she's paying a lot of attention to and really enjoys watching her surfing now and is taking some inspiration from that. And to hear Steph's reflections on who Katie is now and like the first time she ever saw her surf, feeling like, oh, this kid's going to be a world champion for sure. Like the moment she actually saw her stand up on a wave. And I think that was the gut feeling for so many of us as well. But yeah, that's like, it was just such a cool kind of story. Like the way they wrapped that story together, I thought also was really good because it could have been kind of small amounts of dialogue, more based around like how that surf was when they just came in from their session at wherever they're at and that kind of thing, which is typically more the style of a lot of surf films. And so I thought it was really well constructed from a producer's, director's perspective, some good thought in behind the scenes of where they wanted storylines to go through. It was really interesting. And then for me, like about to be a mom, I thought like watching Frankie and hearing her talk about her journey and then her journey into motherhood and taking Yara on the road and now having a second and all of the things that's kind of entailed was like just the coolest. Like there's a few moms that are doing that now in surfing that have been at a really high level and then are continuing that in like a slightly different angle now that they've got kids with them. And it was just, yeah, I thought it was a really great film. I like the name. Like the whole thing is just like happy, bright, colorful, with some really good content behind the scenes.
And I really liked how they had, it sounded like a really young girl was narrating it.
Oh yeah,
at,
that
like,
was
the
so
beginning
cute.
and the little intermission bits and at the end. And the dialogue written that they had her read was just so well written and so well said, rounded everything up at the end so well. And I just thought those were all just like fun, really creative touches. So yeah, I think this is my new favorite. I mean, I also really love surfing, which I was trying to re-Google it after that.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to find surfing edit with Stephanie Gilmore, because if you're thinking about writing that into Google, think about what comes up: surfing edit with Stephanie Gilmore and co. You're just finding surfing videos. Like you're not finding the edit.
You're typing the word surfing into Google. Like that's not going to give you a clean outcome.
Right. So anyways, I ended up finding it. But yeah, I actually think this one goes above that. And, you know, as not to like spend too much time on this and to take it down a tangent road, but when I was growing up, and I feel like we always talk about these things, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I already just said that. Okay. Anyways,
that's okay. Just keep telling us. We're here.
And now I will start talking about
it's taking some time. Officially.
When I was growing up, the only all-women surf film I had was Deering Yonder. And I loved that, not because when I was young being like, oh, for any sort of like feminine statement or woman statement, like I want to see all women. It was just like coming from a place of, oh, I loved seeing, and Deering Yonder featured all disciplines of surfing too. It had like some longboarding and shortboarding. Anyways, I just really enjoyed watching a movie that felt catered towards me and my interests, after watching edit after edit of like, you know, Andy Irons and Mick and all of that my brother loved watching. And we've talked about how, Shannon, on this podcast, we've talked about how that hasn't always like, you know, piqued our interest or like kept our attention. And I just feel like the fact that so many of these are coming out now, you know, we've talked about 3 on this episode alone, but this one in specific, just really, it's so fun. It's not super deep, but you get to know so much about the insights of these surfers, and you get to watch them. And it's one that I felt like I really wanted to go surf afterwards. I wanted to go shortboard afterwards. So that is the clear sign of showing that they did a good job.
It really clicked. It got you onto shortboard.
And I had a really fun shortboard session. So that's even, there you go. I'm just going to leave that there, everybody. You need no more, like, that's the epitome of proof from me.
That is the motivation to go watch the film.
That's literally the highest compliment I could give.
That's so good. I was also watching it feeling like, oh, I'd really like to be in the ocean right now. And then surfing and then looking down and seeing my stomach.
And then you look down
nope.
At your 3 watermelons.
Oh my gosh. Not happening. Not happening for maybe a few more months. And then we'll be straight back out there.
Yeah.
Well, Rach, continuing on the media conversation, shifting it into a social media vein of where we're going with things.
Yeah.
We had a great write-in from a listener, Lydia Pierre, through the last few weeks, and she had just written in about this new Instagram that had popped up called Surf Opinion, which, yeah, it's an Instagram account. It started about 3 months ago, and they've created reels to list the top 100 surfers as they see it. They have quickly amassed 16,000 followers, which is impressive, I will say. Mm-hmm. That said, women make up 8 out of those 100 top surfers as they see it. I'll just go through the list quickly to list out who they kind of saw fit within that. So Tyler Wright is ranked number 89, Katie Simmers, 84, Caroline Marks, 75, Bethany Hamilton, 70, Carissa Moore, 44, Lisa Anderson, 36, Lane Beachley, 33, and then Steph Gilmore comes in that top 10 conversation at number 6. So it's great to see that Steph has gotten herself in that high on the list. Yeah, clearly a page that's also probably created to spark some inflammation in the conversation, not necessarily something that we're going to put a lot of time and fuel into, you know, clearly our thoughts on this are that there should be a whole lot of women on that list. But yeah, just a really interesting one coming in from one of our listeners.
Yeah, I think that's what I was going to come in with, Shan, is that obviously it is an inflammatory conversation, and it's also completely anonymous. This person's just listing like their top 100, and it spans different decades that are hard to compare to and everything, even between men's surfing. But they also included Big Z at number 41 from Surf's Up and Chicken Joe at number 0, as in like above number 1.
I think number 1 was Kelly. So it's like Chicken Joe beats Kelly.
Chicken Joe.
Yeah.
So it really obviously is someone just having fun, and it has gotten so much traction in the comments. Everyone disagrees with certain rankings, and I think that's why it's blown up so much on Instagram. And everyone's disagreeing for so many different reasons. So yeah, why not throw the reason why we disagree is that there's not enough women on the list. But because people weren't happy, and because they've been getting so much feedback within the comments, they decided to take it to a public vote and listed out 64 surfers for people to vote on their ranking. And of course, all 64 were men on the list. So yeah, we'll just put that out there too. Obviously, that's not the list we would have created. So yeah, that has been, I don't mind a bit of entertainment in terms like when you're just watching people argue in the comments, like just look at any of their videos on at Surf Opinion, and people are just arguing in the comments. I'm like, how do people have time for this? This person shouldn't be number 31. Can you ranked this person above this person?
Yeah.
And yeah, I was happy at least to see Steph in the top 10. So take the wins where we can get them. But yeah, obviously lots more not wins there that we could continue to go on.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Lydia, for putting that through to us. Wasn't something that either of us had seen pop up in our feeds until you mentioned it. So we had a little scroll, and now I'm hoping that I won't just be like the algorithm starts hitting me because I looked them up. I'm not going to give them a follow.
Oh my gosh.
Like on my personal page, you know? Yeah.
My algorithm, not to spend too much time on this. Sorry, I keep not wanting to spend time on things and then talking about them. My algorithm is full of stuff on like all the what word am I looking for?
I
like that
literally no idea where you're going.
I know you don't know where I'm going with this. It's basically like filled with all the kind of like hater videos right now on Griffin.
Oh,
and it is literally half of my feed. Like it's just
I got my first one the other day. I had seen nothing about that. Yeah.
It is crazy. So many videos. And now like people that I know that I went to like San Clemente High School with, that, you know, either like remember Griffin from us going to school together, but they are not surfers themselves, are like sending me this stuff being like, what's going on here? And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like it's just crazy how much content there is out there right now. So anyways, that's all to add to this. Like, so now that popped on my algorithm once, and now it's just like half of it. That's how this surf opinion's going to be. Like we look at it once and now it's just going to be like our whole algorithm.
So
perfect.
So perfect. Just what we need. That would be refreshing from the amount of baby spam that I get on like, buy this product, buy this product, buy this product. You look up one thing, you follow one brand so that you try and get into their free draw and win, you know, the baby carrier that's $300. So you don't have to pay for it. And then that's it.
I can imagine.
Okay. I'm fine with that. So we have a cute little girl coming very soon. It's going to be great.
Yay.
Speaking of cute kids that are doing huge things, Erin Brooks, who's like still under 18 years old, you know, she's not like child anymore, but she's like 17. She has landed the cover.
She's a young woman.
She's a young woman. She has landed the cover of the latest issue of Surfer Mag with the most insane photo at Rocky Point. Few people have called it the best shot literally ever taken from Rocky Point, which is probably one of the most photographed waves in the world, from the quality of wave, the type of variety that it has, and the quality of surfers that are out there every single day. Like surf photographers that want to go shoot something. You just have to show up at Rocky Point and like your job's done for you because the quality of surfer in the water is always so good. And it's so sick that Erin Brooks has landed the cover of Surfer.
Yeah, it's incredible. We saw Kelly present her cover to her down at the Lowers event. Kelly obviously being he was presenting it because he was the last person featured on their cover when they came back into print last year. So this is their second print issue that they've done since starting to like reissue prints. I don't know. I mean, I imagine like they're just doing like one a year or something. Or it's still very few. It's very limited. Yeah. So anyways, a huge honor. Erin was completely surprised, which I think is so fun the way they do that. Kelly was just there with like a big, if you haven't seen the video, she's just like, what? Like, no way, no way. And Kelly's there with like a big poster of like what her cover looks like. And yeah, just an incredible shot. Erin noted on her Instagram that she is the 5th woman to be featured across Surfer's 65-year history. So obviously we found that when we were reading that, Shan, that's just shocking. Like we know
it's another inflammatory conversation.
Another inflammatory conversation.
Yeah.
No surprise by us. Yeah. Welcome to the Double Up.
Yeah.
So we should start our intro more aggressive, like, welcome to the Double Up.
Welcome to the Double Up. We are going to speak about things that piss us off today in surfing. Here we go.
But anyway, she's the 5th, which one is such an honor to be featured amongst the amazing men and women that have been featured on the cover of Surfer. Also really shocking to think that they were printing magazines for 65 years and she's only the 5th woman now.
And we're talking hundreds of magazines. Featured. Like right now it's one a year and it's been off for a few years of print because print has essentially died. But before that, it's like monthly. There's just so many. Like my brother and I, our bedrooms were like just full of stacks of Surfer magazine our entire, childhood.
Yeah. So she joins Linda Merrill, who was featured in November 1964. Margot Oberg featured May 1981. Lisa Anderson featured January 1996. And Carissa Moore featured May 2009. So that is, again, like, it's not even like those 5 covers have happened in more recent years as a conversation and featuring around women surfing has like thankfully started to evolve and become like that. Actually features, we're going back to 1964. So we are going back towards the beginning of surfers' literal history. And it's been, over 15 years since Carissa Moore's and another like 10 years
to
before
20
that.
Years
anyways,
between
each one. Super crazy. We'd love to see that change. It's getting increasingly harder since print, as you said, has died. So I do love that credit where credit's due, at least in these last 2 issues. Like they're just starting to reissue print. I'm really glad that they did go with featuring someone like Erin and this insane shot because it absolutely deserves to be on the cover. It is an incredible shot.
Yeah, totally. Go Erin.
Go Erin.
Well, moving forward, Rachel, outside of our media conversation, multimedia, what do you call that? It is like a multimedia world, huh? Something along those lines.
Yeah.
I mean, the WSL they became their own media brand.
They did for a time.
For a time.
They were a media conglomerate that featured surfing.
There we go. Let's talk about the media conglomerate WSL that we have.
But they aren't that anymore.
Right. Which is good.
Now they are an organization that crowns world champions in surfing and features media around that.
Good for them. I'm glad that change happened again. Back to the thing that it should be mostly anchored towards.
Well, let's talk about other changes.
Let's talk about other changes that the WSL has had recently. Most notably, to start things off, talk about the fact that Jessi Miley-Dyer has resigned from the WSL. She is stepping away as commissioner after 13 years of working her way up through the ranks. She has held a number of different positions, mostly within that tours and competitions space, and has had a voice into, say of what's happening within women's surfing, all sorts behind the scenes. And she is heading away from the WSL, which actually took both of us by a pretty huge surprise, Rach.
Huge surprise. I did not. I just figured she was a lifer here at the organization. To have read that announcement, Shan, you and I don't know any more information behind the scenes or anything. We just read what we saw. But yeah, that just came as a huge shock. So it'll be interesting to see if there's any effects to the tour over time. Jessi started as like the women's specific commissioner, but then eventually evolved and worked her way up to head of tours and competition, or more of just different roles that oversaw schedule for like both tours, not just on the women's side. That was commentary that I saw kind of right off the bat of like, oh no, like how is it going to go for the women's tour specifically, which I think just more recently she's been looking at for both tours. So it'll just be interesting to then see if we do see a change on the women's side of things. You know, a lot of the calls for that we see on a daily basis, like at the events, or a lot of these calendar changes obviously happen in a boardroom of lots of people. And, you know, she was always credited with being kind of a voice that was there championing the women and trying to put a focus on that. So, yeah, we will see if that potentially evolves.
Yeah, we'll see how it changes. Of course, there have been some other big changes within the WSL over the last month or so, regardless. Some things that are, well, even in the last year, you know, that are looking really favorable for women. So we're hoping that it's an organization that wasn't resting so heavily. I think the belief amongst a lot of the kind of outside surf community is that a lot of that women's forward action rests on the shoulders of Jessi. I think that as an organization, there are a lot of faults and there are a lot of positives to what's been happening for women. Jessi has obviously been a voice within that, but not necessarily like the person making all of that change herself. So we'll see how the organization moves forward with her outside of that position. Also, who she's going to be replaced by, like what that's going to look like. Is it just going to be Renato for the rest of the year, who's kind of, they swap off between events throughout the season for making the calls on, you know, actually being on the ground at a championship tour event, making the call each morning for who's running, what heats are running, etc. So it could just be that Renato's going to be in that position for the season.
Yeah. The one thing I did hear, and this is like not gospel or anything, but I did hear they are just kind of restructuring the way that department operates. And I don't think anyone's replacing her role in specific. I think they're restructuring it in general. That's just loosely what I heard, but obviously I'm not in those meetings, so I don't know.
And there are multiple team members. So it's like Jessi, Renato, Hickel, Travis Logie, Will Hayden Smith, Kayla Durden is part of that team. She's that newer kind of, you know, member to that. Trying to think if there's anybody else included within that I might be missing.
I think Luli is technically included too as head judge.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's probably a few other people in the department that we're forgetting, but those are loosely like the main people we work closely with.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, interesting times as she's moving on. No idea where she's heading next, if she's got a game plan, if she's going to come back to Australia and just enjoy, you know, some time to get into the water herself. She's such an avid surfer that I'm sure she's going to enjoy the opportunity to just be at home with her family and kind of just relax for a while. But I'd be curious to see where her career goes from here, because she's certainly got a big resume heading into any other jobs in that sporting scene if she's looking for something along those lines.
Absolutely. Other changes that have happened within the WSL now, changes to their Challenger Series schedule. This also took me by surprise. Pipe has now been added, which obviously because WSL gained that Pipe Masters title back, which is awesome for surfing. I know everyone was super stoked to see that. They clearly still have the permit for the Pipe Pro that takes place in January as well. So really great move by them to have added that into the Challenger Series schedule. We know that it is permanently on the schedule for at least the next 3 years with a contract they signed, with hopes that it stays a lot longer. But Shan, I think this is a great move. A conversation, we kind of talked about this with Dave Proden when we had him on, when we collabed our podcast back in March or something. But having that conversation that around how important the stops are on the Challenger Series, because it is boosting or, you know, creating that tour before the World Tour and giving people that practice and those quality waves, and how the quality on the Challenger Series, when Challenger Series started as a concept, was really high and has dwindled off into basically a bunch of beach breaks. It seems like they're putting that effort to return back to that. And I just love that there's going to be the opportunity to see both men and women competing at pipe on the Challenger Series now.
Yeah, it's huge. You know, the fact that it's being added on to a tour schedule that is not the championship tour for women when it took so long to get pipe on the CT schedule for the women, with so much controversy surrounding that. And now knowing that the Challenger Series girls are going to get that opportunity as well. Like, it's awesome for the guys. The guys have had the North Shore of Oahu on the calendar for all of time, aside from the last couple of years where the Triple Crown has changed. So I think the really major win out of this is the fact that more women who are championship tour surfing, you know, hopefuls, CT hopefuls, that they're going to get the opportunity to get competitive time in a jersey at a wave like pipe.
Yeah.
Because we've had that conversation as well on the podcast plenty of times, where free surfing a wave is very, very different from, you know, actually getting a contest opportunity at a wave, unless you happen to live there. And it's also not one of the busiest, most chaotic lineups in the world. Aside from that, like the time in a jersey, getting to surf with 4 other people out, because Hawaii, you've always got to have 4, you know, the way the permits work with heats and stuff, it's always 4 people in the water, not 2, is a massive learning opportunity for these women that are coming up. And I think that's the coolest thing. Also, notable thing to just throw in there is that Graham Stapleberg said in a interview with Stab this week, he's, I can't remember what his title is now. WSL title is just, they get chopped and changed all the time anyways. But
I think he's like president of North America or something like that.
So Graham's one of those guys that has a strong voice within the organization, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And he has made it clear that also the intention of having pipe on the calendar for those events is to run on the good days and to put surfers out in waves of consequence. Not to be running, you know, if they don't need to, on 2 to 4 foot days. Love that the intention is there and that has been said and quotable, because we can reference that back if what we've been seeing happen to the women on the championship tour, which is event after event at pipe. The girls get thrown into small, sluggish 2 to 4 foot days instead of actually being given the opportunity, unless it happens to really luck into them lining up on finals day, that there's good swell that day. So I found that to be a great thing, hopefully, that they hold to, and we'll see what happens. Obviously, that's going to be what's said at the beginning of an announcement like this.
100%. Like, I feel like that is of course that's their intention. Like,
it holds very little weight at this stage.
Why would you ever run a contest, even the CT, for the past few years? You're never running the contest being like, it is our intention to run on bad days.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, okay, well, that's what you're doing. But you are saying that, so let's see the action.
Yeah. And let's see that action being equally divided amongst the men and the women, not just the men.
Yeah, absolutely.
Finish up our Challenger Series and WSL Changes conversation. Newcastle has kind of awkwardly been added in for this year as like an extra. So Newcastle just finished as the start of the Challenger Series. With the announcement of pipe being added in December, Newcastle for next year, which is like early, you know, first third of next year, March or something, has now been added in as a qualifying event, the final qualifying event for this year's Challenger Series, which does beef out the Challenger Series this year from 6 events to 8 events. So that, excuse me, is a positive. It gives more points in the equation for surfers. They're going to have to surf Newcastle twice this year, though, to qualify, which is kind of a little bit awkward. I don't know that that's been done before.
Sure. Yeah.
Anytime in recent years, for sure. But they have also signed a 3-year contract for Newcastle to be the closing event moving forward. So from next season's Challenger Series, it won't be on there twice. It will just be there once.
Yeah.
And it will be the final event of the Challenger Series where, you know, we get those last qualifiers over the line.
Yeah, well, with the changes, we will be seeing 7 events now on the Challenger Series. Yeah, there has been 5. It did start with more than that, but like we talked about, kind of has taken like multiple steps backwards, I think, in their initial intention of the Challenger Series, going down to 5 events at kind of some subpar locations. So to see them boosting up to 7, I do find that really interesting. 7 events on the calendar. And I know, or from what I understand, their prize money hasn't altered at all. And I know that's a conversation. It's pretty similar to longboard's prize money. And I know that's a conversation that we have in longboarding. Like we couldn't have it would be great to have more stops on our tour, but they could not increase it anymore without increasing the prize money first, because at that point it's then going to be just not affordable. So while I know people will probably be really excited in terms of points wise and opportunity to surf more events, I'd be interested to hear if any of the surfers have any concerns or commentary around the affordability side of it, because that's a huge portion of being able to obviously participate in these tours and having that external support in order to participate from sponsors and such. So either way, I am excited to see these new locations. That was such a pleasant, obviously Instagram basically is like our news app these days. Yeah. Like that's where I see all announcements of everything. So when I opened Instagram and saw like new schedule alert or whatever, I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, very exciting to see.
Well, Rach, moving forward into actual contest conversation, there's been a few events that have run since we last recorded. And the first that we want to talk about is Stab High, which happened in Japan. That coincided with a championship tour event. So, that discounts the championship tour surfers being able to be involved. We're also not really sure contractually that they would be allowed to surf in a Stab High. There's a lot of red tape around surfers, on tour surfing events that are not on the tour. That said, it was a really cool event in some, wave pool setting where we got to see 10 ladybirds and 10 bottle rockets competing. So that was really neat to see equal numbers for, the boys and the girls divisions for the grommets. And then kind of to counter that, 36 in the pro men's, as opposed to what was meant to be 3 for the pro women's, with a ladies bird winner then getting a ticket. So the surfer that won ladies bird and the surfer that won bottle rockets got to get into like the main opens event for the men's and the women's, which is sick. So that would have taken the women's competing up to 4. Sierra Kerr was then in a late addition, so that actually bumped it up to 5, which was awesome. And yeah, it was really fun to see the girls just absolutely charging in some fun wave pool action.
Yeah, we saw Eden Walla win the Ladybirds and Sierra Kerr win the pro women's alongside other women that we saw competing in the pro women's were Mila Coco Brown, Sky Brown, and Nanaho Suzuki. So yeah, really cool to see those women all show up over in Japan in the wave pool quality that they had there. So, and like you said, Chen, I think it's just an interesting note too. I think obviously, I don't know. Okay. Not that we're going to get, this is the theme. All these things I don't really want to get into while still getting into them. I think, with the 5 women competing or the 4 invited into the pro women's, I think it's interesting. Obviously, the championship tour taking place limited some of those women that we would see we could see compete in Stab High. But I think it is noteworthy to see that I can't think of 36 women that would qualify into the purpose of the Stab High competition, obviously being an air game competition. But I am happy to see that when they're investing into the younger gen, there were 10 ladybirds and 10 bottle rockets, because I think in terms of air game on the women's side, it is definitely that younger gen that has come onto tour with it. Obviously, Katie, Molly's, Erin, for sure, as we've just talked about with her
surfer cover. Yeah.
But yeah, right now that's not where we don't have that air game yet on the women's side. And, I'm not saying that as a negative, just I guess counting it, because I think that will massively change in the next 5 years. I think our conversation around that in 5 years will look massively different. But I think it also is because we are seeing 10 young girls and 10 young boys equally invited into things like this, because that is what will massively change it in 5 years' time. We'll be able to see that field on the women's side really grow into a wider field of quality competition in air game.
It's so true. Like even thinking through, Katie and Erin, those were ladybirds. like before they were ever
yeah.
championship tour surfers. Stab pulled them along, brought them on trips, and a lot of those girls who are now, you know, competing like a Sky Brown, a Millicooka Brown, like they've had those opportunities a little bit earlier on. Sierra Kerr, now they're starting to fill out those higher divisions, and it's setting the standard. Like them doing that a few years ago as little Grammies.
Well, I'm just thinking on this, Shannon, correct me if I'm wrong, but they didn't used to have a pro women's division. They always just had the Ladybirds.
Yeah.
So this even evolving is showing that their Ladybirds, their initial Ladybirds, being Sierra Kerr, Erin Brooks, all of those people, have now evolved into a pro women's division, or like enough that they needed to create a pro women's division. So I know we're highlighting the fact that it's not as many, like it's few women, but we're evolving in a positively trending on this one.
Yeah, 100%. Like we're seeing that development from like years back, it just being like a few girls that were learning how to do airs and maybe weren't even landing airs on these trips, but were like getting their board up above the lip and starting to try airs, where then those girls developed their skill sets into landing those, starting to pull bigger ones, like starting to make themselves known as good aerialists in that conversation. And that has set the standard for this next younger generation to start trying airs earlier. Of course, we have the likes of, you know, Carissa, we talked about that air, the Newcastle air, that Kate Myers took a photo of in our last episode. We've got like Lakey Peterson was, you know, there was a lot of talk around her when she graduated to the championship tour from her NSSA years and her just like early pro junior years and everything of her doing airs in competition. But we've also discussed this very thoroughly on the podcast in the past of the judging criteria and where that has really lended women's surfing to just be rail surfing for generations instead of it forcing the women into that air conversation where the men have been very rewarded for it and then have had less reward for their rail surfing for some of those years to really push it. So all things where we could talk forever about, which is not our intention today, but love the fact that, those 10 Ladybirds are there. They're going to then eventually graduate into a pro women's division that could have, say, 15 at this stage, which there are more surfers out there who could be already included in that conversation, but have tour responsibilities, etc. But yeah, I think it was really fun to watch. The other thing, before I throw it back to you, Rach, that I wanted to mention was in watching it, because I watched a lot on the day, that environment and being in the wave pool and everything and the stoke levels of the girls and the support they have for each other, it's really similar to a skateboarding environment. And I've gotten to see now at like back-to-back Olympics for Tokyo and in Paris, I've been able to be on the ground to watch like the skate bowl finals, the park finals and everything, which has been really fun to just like sit there and enjoy it. And the kind of support that the girls have for each other, because that's also the majority of skaters competing in the women's division at the Olympics are like under the age of 16. They're kids. We're literally talking like 12 to 13 years old. And then you get a couple that are kind of into their 20s within that conversation. They're so supportive of each other. And it's a really cool, like, because you're in like a skate park environment, you just have that ability to like one person finishes and everyone runs up and cheers them on. It's a little bit different than like heat surfing on like a big open beach. And I had that same feeling watching Stab High of the girls like getting so backed, like backing each other. And when someone would try something and they would fall and then they would try it again on the next one, and they'd fall again. Like everyone was right there in the mix with it and support for each other, which was really sweet.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Well, taking the conversation forward in more competition, Newcastle, obviously we just chatted about its placement on tour. Well, we just saw the first Challenger Series event wrap up, and that obviously took place at Newcastle. It has always previously, the Challenger Series always kicked off at Snapper Rocks. So that schedule has changed because Snapper Rocks has now been added back onto the CT. We have seen Newcastle now be added as the opening for this year. Anyways, we just talked about that. So we just saw that take place. And with that, with the kickoff of this Challenger Series tour, obviously, Shan, now 7 women qualify from the tour this year, up from 5 previously, because obviously the championship tour women's has increased up to 24 women. So allowing more women to qualify onto tour. So that is great. And to kick off this Challenger Series, we just saw Kika Veselko win the event.
Yeah, it was so awesome to see Kika take out that victory. It was pretty wild on the day because there were a few standouts that you kind of were like, okay, you know, is Sal going to win it? Is Tia going to win it? Kika was just kind of like quietly working her way through heats, like surfing very well. But as, at least for me, I like watched a lot of finals day, listening to some of the commentary around it. It wasn't like, there wasn't a lot of focus on her performances within those heats.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of love sometimes when a surfer like that gets a win, because it's like someone that's maybe a slightly less known. Now I say less known, but she's actually a world junior champion. She took out that victory in 2022. And I've got to give a huge shout out to Jessi Starling, who commentated her very first championship tour event at Margaret River. We'll get to that in a minute.
Fantastic.
Did an incredible job as an analyst. Like, she's a great sideline reporter. She is a great analyst. She's a young, like early 20s, maybe 21. I don't even think she's 22 yet. She is like the next big reporter within like sports in Australia, within surfing in our context, 100%. And then fast forward to Newcastle the week after Margaret River, she got to go between the role of analyst and play-by-play, and play-by-play is the role that I fill. That's officially like the next person coming in that play-by-play role, which is so awesome. Like, Jessi's so extremely well suited for that position. And I just felt so proud listening to her and watching her and her insights. And she knows all the surfers because she's been competing with them and she's friends with so many of them. And she was schooling the boys on stats and just dropping knowledge on people. I think she was the only person to be mentioning the fact that Kika had won a world junior title that year until like the final. And then suddenly it was like picked up that, all right, the girl who's winning is a world junior champion. Right. But yeah, Jessi was just like, I just got to put that out there. She absolutely nailed it. Like, start of the morning to end of the day. Her energy is good. Her insights are good. She's going to be a really awesome sports reporter, surf reporter to be listening to for many years to come. And I thought that was really cool to kind of see her hit her highlights while another young surfer in Kika Veselko walked away with her first Challenger Series win.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw 3 Portuguese surfers in the quarterfinals in general, with Yolanda Hopkins, Teresa Bonvalot, and Kika. So that's just like of note too, you know, the Portuguese women just kicking off with a bang.
So solid. Very, very impressive. And it would be awesome to see, you know, we've already seen Teresa with those championship tour opportunities. We've seen Yolanda with the wild cards before, but to see someone again really solidify themselves into that conversation and get a run on the championship tour for more than 1 year would be really awesome. And that could be coming out of this year's Challenger Series. Sally Fitzgibbons. Wow. What a roller coaster of a month she has had when it comes to competing. Came into the Australia leg needing some huge results.
Yeah.
Found a massive result at Snapper, nearly won, walked away second to Bettylou Sakura Johnson. Then got to Margaret River, still needed a huge result. Unfortunately, didn't get what she needed to keep herself on tour. But then came into Newcastle a few days later, like, to be able to have that kind of turnaround, knowing that if she wants to be on tour for next year, she's going to have to requalify herself as the only surfer from the Women's Championship Tour this season actually to have to do that from those qualifications in the cut line, which we'll get to in a moment. She, you know, nearly wins the event while falling straight off tours. An extremely impressive comeback straight away.
Yeah, she is so mentally strong. I mean, that's what that comes down to. I think obviously her skill level is there. We don't need any more proof for that. But yeah, the mental strength she has on the competition side of things is spectacular. Another girl, not woman, but girl, that is so impressive to everyone at the moment, Tia Zabrowski. She is only 14 years old, and we have been talking about her since she was like 11 or 12 because she's been such a standout at all the ISAs, and now she has just started forging her way through the QSs last year, kicking off in the Challenger Series now. Obviously, she lost in the semifinals. Huge result for her. So I think everyone at this point, knowing how young she is, but out of the few events, limited events in her young age, I guess, that she has done and how amazing her results have been, everyone's expecting one of the spots to go to her this year, or to expect her to qualify this year.
Yeah, it would be insane. I mean, to think of her, I don't know when her birthday is, when she'll turn 15, but either way, if she qualifies this year, she'll be the youngest surfer to qualify for the championship tour, which is insane. Looking at her challenger, like her 2 Challenger Series appearances so far in her career, one being the Challenger Series she's qualified for now, being this year at Newcastle semifinals. Last year, she was a wild card into the Portugal Challenger Series, and she got a runner-up finish to Sally Fitzgibbons. Incredible performances so far in the 2 biggest events of her career outside of World Surfing Games, trying to qualify for the Olympics or something with those stacked fields that she has to go against. So yeah, she's going to be a surfer that we have high expectations, like the same kind of conversation around an Erin Brooks coming onto that, around a Katie Simmers when she was walking into the door, but doing this even younger than what the 2 of them have been able to capitalize with so far.
Another fun narrative that we saw was that both Sierra Kerr and Josh Kerr were in the draw for their divisions respectively. Josh made round of 16, which is very impressive.
Surfing twin fins.
Sierra, yeah. Unfortunately, we saw Sierra get knocked out in her first heat. So super unusual for what we'd expect out of a result from her to kick off this year.
Yeah, I think for her, the transition, just thinking through her last couple of seasons, transition from qualifying series to Challenger Series has been a challenge, unfortunately, because her surfing, talking about the fact that she just won Stab High like the week before, the type of well-roundedness that she has, the barrels that she rides, like all of the things, she's right there in that conversation with a Katie, with Erin, etc. From a competitive side, she's able to just wax her way through so easily through the qualifying series, qualifying through this Australia Asian region, and has taken out plenty of wins on that side, but just hasn't been able to really find her footing when it comes to the Challenger Series. So I'm hopeful maybe having Dad also competing could be they've got such a good relationship, from everything that we can see. Hopefully she's kind of starting to grow into that position of figuring out what it takes at this level, because we would love to see her in the mix on the championship tour, which is our next topic of conversation, with the cut at Margaret River being a pretty big one.
Yeah, well, we saw some massive conditions for that event. And we saw Gabriella Bryan take out the win. No surprise with how powerful her surfing is. She has now won back-to-back and has made the final 3 times in a row. 3 out of 4 times, 4 appearances. I don't think it was in a row. But anyways, 3 out of 4 appearances she has made the final. So obviously her and this wave go hand in hand together. And she took the win over Katie Simmershen.
Oh, that was so cool. I mean, the story too of that event, really, and kind of the tour of the season so far for the women, is the contrast in their surfing styles. Like a Katie versus Gabby final was absolutely perfect, especially at a wave like Margaret River, which you can showcase stylistic approaches. You can also showcase very powerful approaches. And we've seen, each of those within the type of surfing that Katie brings, and the lines that she draws being wildly different from anyone else. We had that conversation earlier this year with the Abu Dhabi wave pool lines that Katie was drawing there, and it just being so awesome to watch. So exciting, because you don't know what's going to come next and you're not seeing anyone else do this kind of thing. That's Katie's approach to most of the waves that she rides, which I think keeps it really fresh and exciting. And then Gabby starting to really click into that, encourage, I guess, that self-belief, maybe the encouragement from so many people getting behind her this year, in that her power is, she's the most powerful surfer in the world. She's got everything it takes to be winning events using that power to her advantage. And yeah, to see her capitalize on Margaret River, it's it's becoming that same storyline of John and his relationship with Margaret River, which they just go together so well, and you expect him to win every heat that he paddles out in there. That's starting to become the story of Gabby, which is so awesome.
Absolutely. Other change-ups we saw in the lineup, Lakey Peterson made the semifinals. She needed that result, so she just edged out
that was wild.
Sawyer Lynn Blad in order to continue on the tour this year. Sawyer was the only person that we saw who went from above the cut line to below the cut line. We did just see her get the wild card into lowers, having that take place. She didn't get the season wild card or anything, but she did get the event wild card, being that she is at home in San Clemente. So the surfers that we saw relegated to that 11th to 14th position, Sawyer Lindblad, Vahine Fierro, Bella Kenworthy, and Brisa Hennessy. All 4 of those surfers we will not see surf on the rest of the tour this year, but are not off the championship tour next year. We've talked about that a ton, but just to give that refresher. So again, that means Sally, also being knocked out after that cut, is the only person relegated. Thank you. I didn't sound right. Yeah. Even when I was trying to relegated
in your mind
to the Challenger Series and getting that nice result over there in Newcastle.
Yeah, pretty wild. Like, awesome to know that those 4 surfers, Sawyer, Vahine, Bella, Brisa, get to just pick and choose what they do this year because they've got a job next year. They're on tour. They're on the championship tour, which is amazing. Where Sally, it's questionable. So she's had to go straight back to work the next week, not having these opportunities. I've been watching some of the social media stuff like from Vahine and Brisa and over the last week or two, and they've just been having such a good time either being back at home and surfing their own waves and
I can
connecting
imagine
with their families and being at birthday parties and just all the things. And it's kind of, it would be so not great to not be on tour for the rest of this season, but also like this really cool, it feels like kind of like a once in a lifetime little opportunity that they're going to get to tap out, focus on, maybe stuff they've missed out on for a while, put a lot of work into their own surfing come next season, knowing that it's just like a guarantee, which is pretty sick.
Well, job secured next year.
Exactly.
So it's not like they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, hey, you can't go and find something else. You just have to enjoy and work on your craft. Hopefully we see some edits drop of some of these surfers.
Yeah.
I don't know. That would be super cool.
And they obviously could surf in the Challenger Series if they wanted to, but they don't have to. So they don't need to waste their time and their money and their energy and resources in doing that as well.
Yeah. Another highlight out of Margaret River, Shan. So I know both of us were so happy about this to see Bronte McCauley come back out of retirement just to take the wild card of this event, makes her 4th semis. I know everyone was hoping that she would win the event. I know we're so proud of Gabby, but
if Bronte had won, it would have been the best thing.
Bronte win the event. But just incredible. I mean, localism, or not localism, but like that local favorite or that local knowledge just really proves to, I think, make such a huge impact. I think we see Bronte not surfing any contest recently and being able to go straight to the surf all the way to the semis, or even Sawyer getting relegated out. So not having any of those super strong results she was looking for, and then getting semifinals here at lowers at her home is just a really, I always am interested to see how that really does come into play in surfing and in competition, of being able to have that wave at your local break. But yeah, I loved seeing Bronte on the stage again.
Yeah, it was just really good. And yeah, to see like all the signs made for her, and the Margaret River community they're just always down there, on the boardwalk, like ready to watch and celebrate and cheer everyone on, whether it's, surfers from all around the world, or they're really, always so supportive of their local crew. So really special for Bronte as well, with her, stating that she's, fully going into retirement now as a competitive surfer, to walk away with getting to surf at this event specifically for the finish, rather than just having fallen off tour, not made it back on the Challenger Series, makes the announcement she's retiring, and then we don't hear from her again in a jersey. I thought that was really great of the WSL to have that invite for her to come back in, as well as then to have Willow in there as a trials winner, but for Bronte to just get that shot straight away again. Obviously, her surfing speaks for itself with a semifinal finish. That said, it was, just such a cool thing, to see her knowing what she's working on behind the scenes. She's now studying to be a teacher. She's coaching a lot of the local Groms, and I think that's a really beautiful thing to see her walking into next, because of, just knowing her personality and who she is as a person, I think is going to be really well suited to those sorts of roles for the rest of her life. She'll get lots and lots of waves, but her opportunity to be in a classroom with kids and to be coaching, I think, is really sweet. That said, also, last little note for her. If the Challenger Series had taken 7 women in previous years, which is happening this year, Bronte would have qualified both 2022 and 2023 after having fallen off the championship tour, and she would likely still be on tour. So it just goes to show, like, her surfing has been right there. It's been right there in the picture. It's just been, unfortunately, on the years where those numbers were still really unfair on the women's side of things, that Bronte wasn't able to quite make it across that cut line. Had it been any year moving forward from now, Bronte would for sure be on the championship tour.
Well, to keep the conversation going on things that surfers felt were unfair,
Ooh,
we didn't see the women run at the box when they decided to. It was only like half a day that they ran. Surfers over there, they ran, one of the men's rounds. I don't remember off the top of my head, but crazy conditions. So many highlights of the event came out of the men running at the box. But I think what's noteworthy of this conversation, Shan, is that from what we have heard, it was a vote of the women, or it went to a vote whether they wanted to run at the box or not. And it was Katie, Molly, and Betty who voted yes, they wanted to, and the rest of the women voted that they didn't want to. And so, we've heard that those 3 women were pretty upset about not having the opportunity to run over there.
Oh, yeah. I think it was
the rest of the women making that decision.
Katie or Molly. One of them straight up in her post heat was just like, fully pissed. Very open about it, which I thought was really great to hear from, because there is those questions for us watching as an audience going like, okay, also, knowing there's so many things behind the scenes to actually run at the box, and maybe the day before they should have run at the box and they didn't, and all these different things back and forth. And then to know that it actually went to a vote on the women's side is really interesting. I think there's been conversations at Pipeline along those lines as well through the years of like which days they want to run. Would they rather run on the smaller days? Would they rather run on the big days? And, some of those women being really pumped to run on the good days, and some of them just being like, would rather not. So that's a really interesting one. It's going to be interesting to see how that sort of those decisions are made. If anything about that decision-making process changes with Jessi being out of the equation. I think the one kind of point here I'd like to make is, as the responsibility of the organization pushing surfing forward, is it a good thing that they allow those kind of decisions to go to a vote? Or is it better to just be like, hey, we're running at the box today, get yourselves ready and let's see what happens? I don't know, well, that's even like a conversation put out to our audience. You guys can, give us your feedback if you'd like to about
Ponder on that.
Have a thought about it. Is it a good thing? Obviously, we think a surfer's vote is so important in so many things. But in situations like that, for pushing the sport forward, is it something where they kind of just need to maybe eventually make a decision to do something like that? And with Jessi being out of the conversation, will that change?
Yeah, I've been in a similar position when we ran in Papua New Guinea, and it was a barreling reef right-hand point. And it was wild. Yeah. And it really pushed us as surfers. And I know one of the days, it was like day 1 and 2 still had decent swell. And they put it up to a vote for the women if we wanted to run in the conditions or not. And I was a yes. And we were able to get enough women to vote yes. But it was like pretty split down the line. And I remember being on that side of like really frustrated, or even just talking to the women being like, hey, we are constantly saying we want these opportunities, like, and we're trying to prove to the wider world that we can take these opportunities. We can't walk away when they finally arrive. And so the fact that we did run did feel like a huge win, but I know it can be really frustrating when you're not aligned with your peers on that, because in one way, they're your peers, and other ways, they're your competitors. But when you're a surfer that has put that time into those conditions, and you feel like, hey, going out in these conditions will really suit me as a competitor, or vice versa, well, I'm not super confident in these conditions, this won't suit me as a competitor. People often start voting with like what's personally going to suit me, which then turns frustrating because you're like, well, what's going to, for me, I'm someone who always very much votes on like what suits the sport and what's important for us as athletes showing up for the sport that we're also trying to progress. I think we as athletes do have a responsibility towards that outside of just our personal results and careers. So yeah, I mean, I understand why they voted no, but I do think it's disappointing that we didn't get to see them. I think every time we see women show up in those conditions, it always helps the conversation. Just like we've been seeing them show up at Pipe, like all the best days. When we've seen them in like real surf, you know, has been all the biggest conversations out of the event. So yeah, it's interesting. And I think, again, important to have the conversation that instead of just being like, oh, why didn't they run probably WSL, that actually this was on what we've heard, a decision from the women. And I think that's a great question that you posed, Shannon, to ponder on. Like, is it helpful for the WSL to be putting those questions out there to be voted on? It's super important to have surfers' voice in the conversations. The surfers, we essentially are the ones actually going out and doing the work and feeling it out there and taking that feedback and so forth. But a lot of surfers vote with what's going to give them the competitive advantage. And so at some point that actually does end up being a disadvantage essentially for progression, I think. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know at what point do you find that it to be unhelpful or not, or if we reach that point with these places and then, or I don't know.
Yeah, I just had this last thought to kind of add into there. It almost goes back to that stab high of like, okay, we used to only have a couple girls. Now there's 10 in the Ladybirds, and that's awesome. And that's going to grow it. For the WSL, like, women would have never been considered to run in the box. Like, it wouldn't have even been a question mark. It would have been like, women are off for the day, men are on the box. Or tomorrow we're planning to go to the box. So women, you're already called off. Men, you're in. To give the benefit of the doubt in a positive way towards even asking, you know, okay, let's engage with the surfers and get their vote on this. At least giving the girls a vote, giving the women's tour a vote on if they wanted to go out, means the WSL was willing to send the women out, which probably hasn't been the case at the box very few times or ever.
Yeah.
Knowing how heavy the box is, everything that comes alongside of that.
Yeah.
And knowing how challenging it has been to get them to run the women, first of all, to put Tahiti or Pipeline on the calendar for the women, and then to actually put them out there on the days when it's big and consequential and not, you know, rippable shortboardy turns by any means. So yeah, that's kind of my last thought. I was like, well, I mean, at least they're giving them an option, which is awesome. Now it's being handed. I love that story from Papua New Guinea. I totally forgot about that. And it was heavy those first few days of that event for you guys. And like, the way that those discussions would go down. I love the fact that, as you know, the majority of you voted to surf and didn't back away from it as well. So yeah, I think it kind of, I don't know. It's an interesting one, a little bit of dialogue that we could open up to the audience as well. And we'll see. Maybe. It's been 6 years since they even ran the men at the box, so it's not like we get to have this conversation every year either. But yeah, maybe one day we get to see the women surf out there too.
Would love it.
Yeah.
Would love it. Well, to wrap up this conversation, Shan, why don't we touch on the event that just wrapped up here in San Clemente, being the Lowers Pro. We saw Bettylou Sakura Johnson win her second CT out of the last three.
Crazy.
She is on a roll, and she was really, really in form. On finals day, 5 of her waves, she surfed quarter semis finals. 5 of her waves were excellent scoring rides. She got 3 8s and 2 9s on finals day. So just showing how in form she was. She defeated Molly Picklum in the finals to secure that win.
Yeah, super impressive. I didn't watch very much of Trestles because it was middle of the night here. I am heavily pregnant and not paying much attention to other things. But I did get to see a little bit. I kind of watched like literally the finals, not even like semis or anything. Because I think I woke up and was like, oh, it's on. Erin was already up from 3 a.m. watching it or something. because he's the diehard in the family. That will watch no matter what time of the day it is. But yeah, I thought that was so amazing to see Bettylou start to find like her place, because we know she came onto the championship tour with so much conversation and expectation, and she was like writing Kelly's boards and her coaching like she just had the setup that was like the expectation on her was win a world title your rookie year. And then she really struggled, and we knew that it was hitting her really hard. And it's taken a few years for her to start finding her own rhythm and her place, I think, in who she is on the championship tour, and not just being like this incredible standout Grom coming out of Haleiwa. And so to watch her win a couple of events now that's got to be really like, it's so awesome and so scary for the rest of the tour, because she's finally clicked into where our expectations have been on her for a couple of years. And she's one of those surfers that is just going to get better and better, I feel like, with age.
Well, we've seen it's not just like she's finally kicking into gear. We've seen specific changes to her and her team and her equipment happen. She went from Slater Designs to Mayhem this year. She also changed coaches from Ross Williams to Tom Whitaker. So initially those changes, I remember us, I think, noting this, talking about it during the Abu Dhabi event. They were like not just not helping her, but it was like
didn't sink
she was really struggling, and it was not sinking. She was not looking in the form that we have seen her. And now it's like she has settled in that for the last few months. I don't know if she's, continuously been playing with her equipment or what, but she's found her stride, and she was surfing really unstoppable on that day. I mean, even in Molly's Instagram, in her caption, when she was just, talking about how she got second, and she said, "Congrats to Bettylou. You were the person to beat. You were the informed surfer." And, I think that's super true. You often, as a competitor, notice who are the other people that are really taking to this wave, who look really informed, look strong in their equipment on this wave. And Bettylou looked like that person from the start. So yeah, that is, I think, a great point that you said, Shan. I wonder if it's nerve-wracking for competitors going, oh shoot, okay, this is what we've been waiting to see kick off, and now it's starting to.
It's totally, that's it. And like you mentioned, her having X amount of excellent scores, 5 excellent scores or something on finals day.
Yeah.
Her heat total in the quarters for her quarterfinal matchup was the highest heat total for the women's field for the year. So that was extremely impressive on a combination. Also, the fact that she's now won 2 out of the last 3 events has jumped her 9 places in the ranking. She went from number 13, not making the cut for the rest of the season position, to being now in the top 5. She's ranked number 4. And she's in very close striking distance of the top 3 of Katie, Gabby in number 1, Katie number 2, and Molly number 3, who have been holding on to those positions throughout the season. So like that is, for her to have made a comeback like that, to jump into the top 5 and to now have her sights set on, all right, a few more events for the season. It's a pared down field. Also, quick note to that, how strange was it to suddenly watch like there's 10 women on tour for the rest of the season, 12 in each event with the wild cards.
Yeah.
Thankfully that's changing, and we're going to see some massive shifts to the numbers. This will be the smallest women's field that we watch hopefully ever again. And yeah, but it was just, for her, like, to kind of go, okay, pared down focus, less people to surf against, less heats to surf in for every event, real shot at keeping herself in the final 5 towards Fiji is really impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also saw some shakeups in these rivalries that we have been paying specifically close attention to this year. One of them being Bettylou versus Molly. Bettylou finally got the win over Molly in that final. We also have been watching Katie versus Molly this year. They've gone head to head. I think maybe this was their 7th or 8th time, and Katie has gotten Molly's number every single time. And finally, Molly got her in that semifinal they had together. So that was really great to see. I enjoyed listening to Molly's post-heat interview after that one. She was just super open and transparent about that. She was like, Katie's gotten me. It feels so good to finally get one over Katie in the last time competing against each other at lowers, which was obviously in the finals format, she was like, I was holding the lead a lot more strongly against Katie, and she got a big score at the end to switch it. And so I never felt comfortable or safe, but I'm just really happy to have gotten the win. So yeah, I loved hearing that perspective from her. And again, that's something that you really, that plays in your mind when you have these rivalries going. So that was fun to see some switch ups in that.
Yeah, it's really cool to see everyone kind of coming into those positions. And now I think, those are 3 names that kind of came onto tour in that similar year or two and have, Katie's obviously gotten a world title, so she's that front runner of the pack. Molly's been close in that conversation. Bettylou is just starting to really find herself into that now, and that's the expectations we would have had for the last couple of years. And yeah, I just think it's good. It's good to see. All that being said as well, quick mention to Molly's 9.6 in the semis, which was the highest wave score of the year. So Trestles as a venue paying off for a normal championship tour venue. Everyone was so stoked, I think, also to see it in that setting again, instead of it just being the final 5, which we were all getting so frustratedly bored with. And that being the world title decider, we just want to see it as an event where we can see that performance surfing, where we can see, exactly what the surfers can bring to the table. Obviously paying off with the highest heat total of the year going to Bettylou in the quarters, highest wave of the year going to Molly within the semis, and overall having Trestles back on as a normal stop is just a really fun win for everyone.
Yeah, it's such a consistent competitive wave. So I'm very happy that it is on the tour. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a biased San Clementian. It is great to see him, and the performance is getting to see the wider field, both on the men's and women's side. I mean, for the men's, that was Yago Dora's first time ever competing at lowers and to go straight to the win.
So
of
good.
course,
that was awesome.
Since he's been on tour, it's been the finals or hasn't been on the regular season. So that was great to see him get that win as well. I was super stoked with that. And yeah, it was super fun. I got to be in the booth for Bettylou's semifinal. So that was great to see too, against Sawyer Lindblad, and get to talk to that and join Joe Trappell and Jessi Mendez in there was such a treat.
So good. Love seeing.
And it was really funny because Jake was working water safety this event, and his on his jet ski, he was had Strider and the broadcast on his ski. So while I was in the booth, we went to Strider twice. So I was like, wow, I'm speaking into this heat, and then Jake's out there making that shot happen. That's as awesome. Well. So that was fun.
So good.
Oh, I know.
Well, this has been an episode full of so many little bits of conversation. We had a lot that we needed to catch up on, and I feel like we did it in a pretty good amount of time. Covered, some controversy, covered some really exciting changes to things, and celebrated some really incredible surfing that we've gotten to witness, both in the edits, Rach, that we have loved.
I was just going to say that.
And in competition surfing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Shan, for jumping on this with your heavily pregnant body. I hope we can get one more in before we meet the baby girl. But of course, whenever the baby girl wants to come, she's welcome to.
She's welcome.
So she is welcome into this world with very excited people.
Well, are you going to go back out on your shortboard today, or are you done?
It is 8 p.m. So no, I will not be.
Is that light, natural light that I'm looking at though? It's still light out.
Yeah, it is still light out. It's not getting dark. Like you could probably surf to like 8:30.
Okay.
But no, I'm starving. So it's dinner time.
Nice. Well,
so 2 sessions for me today. It was good. One longboard, one shortboard.
Nice. Very fun. Well, thanks for the time. Thanks for listening to everyone tuning in, and we'll be back in your ears shortly at some point.
At some point. Thanks for listening.
See ya.
Bye.